Welcome to the Netivot Shalom Shir. Pesach, as we all know, is just 2 weeks away. Today was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Chodesh Tov to everybody. Pesach, we talk about Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt. Watching the news tonight, some of the hostage parents, relatives are using the same language that Moshe used to Paro. Let my people go. Let my people go. Reminds us of Mitzrayim. So the piece we're going to talk about tonight, is Nitzchiot in Yetzias Mitzrayim, the eternity of the aspect of remembering going out of Egypt. So we're looking at the Netivot Shalom in the Sefer Beit, this Sefer, and it's on page Reish Ayin Vav 276. So the Netivot Shalom starts as follows: B'chol dor v'dor, chayav odam liros es atzmo ki hu yotz Mitzrayim. Every generation, a person must see himself or herself as if they left Egypt. Shenemar, as it says in the Torah, V'gadata levincha bayom ha'hu le'mor, you should tell your son on that day, saying, Ba'avur zeh, because of this, Asher Hashem li b'tzeisi b'Mitzrayim, God did this to me in leaving Mitzrayim. And you remember that question is one of the questions that's asked by the four sons at the Haggadah. Why do we do these things? It's Ba'avur zeh, because of this. This is why we do the various things that we're doing. Yesh levar, we should explain. Eich shayach adam. How is it possible for a person, asher lo haya b'Mitzrayim, who was never in Egypt, lo yotze b'sham, and didn't leave there, shiomer, to say, Ba'avur zeh asa Hashem li b'tzeis Mitzrayim. How can that person say, because of this, that God did to me when I left Egypt? The Rambam writes, Laharot es atzmo. It's to put yourself in the position, to kind of teach yourself and to make yourself feel as if you were there. But we still, he says, we still have to explain this. Okay, we still have to understand Pesher HaKasuv, the interpretation of the sentence in the Torah. L'man tizkoras yom tzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha, that you shall remember the exodus from Egypt all the days of your life. Ki halo Torah kodesh hu nitzchis. The Torah is eternal. We've said many, many times, the Torah isn't here just to tell us stories about what happened in the past, but is here to tell us about things that guide our life today, this very day. U'naberet el kol Yehudi ad sof kol hadoros, and the Torah speaks to every Jew until the end of all generations. So what is this speaking to us? U'ma shayach lomer, and what is the purpose of saying Seitzcha, that he brought us out, Lemi, Shlo hayim b'tzias Mitzrayim, we weren't there. What good is it to say we should remember the day we left Egypt? Kiyotziba, similarly, Yesh lahavin gam the Dibur Elokeinu Yakum la'olam, the words of God that are established forever, and the Barosh Aseret HaDibrot, and the first of the Aseret HaDibrot, B'amud Har Sinai, where we're standing at Sinai. What is the very first of the Aseret HaDibrot? Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God, Asher Hotzeisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. She mitzvahs v'munah Hashem, that first of the Aseret HaDibrot is the commandments of having Amunah in Hashem, having belief in Hashem and God. Asher HaYesod HaYesodos L'chol Yehudi L'netzach. This is the foundation of all foundations, every Jew forever. Remember Beloshen Nochach, and it's said in a language as if it's happening right now. Hotziach Hotzeichicha, I am bringing you out. Be'eretz Mitzrayim, the Dorei Doros, bringing you out from the land of Egypt from generation to generation. V'chein beluchos shniot, also in the second set of luchos, the second set of the commandments after the first luchos were broken by Moshe. But Tzivui ala Shabbos, when it's commanded about Shabbos, Kasuv, it's written, V'zacharta you shall remember ki eved hayisa be'eretz Mitzrayim, that you were a slave in Egypt. Yotziyacha Hashem l'kecha misham v'gover, and God brought you out of there, and so on. Yesh l'parish inyan, so we can explain as follows. Api the Isiv Midrash, as it says in the Midrash, Ala pasuk atem nitzavim hayem kulchem lefnei Hashem Elokechem. All of you, nitzavim, are standing before the Lord your God. Nitzavim, you're standing. Amar lahem Moshe. Moshe says to Bnei Yisrael, Bo Ru, come and see. V'agida lechem, and I'll tell you. Al kama yitzivos his yatzvosam, and how many times you are standing together before God. B'tchila al hayam. First time was as we were ready to cross the Reed Sea. Inyan, as it says, his yatzvu, stand, ra'u, and see, as Yeshua's Hashem, the salvation of God. B'acher kach, and then it says, his yatzvechem l'kabel Torah. You should stand to receive the Torah. How do we know that? Shnemar, because the pasuk says in Shemos, "V'yisyatzvu b'tachti tahor." You shall stand underneath the mountain, underneath Mount Sinai. V'ata, and now, atem netzavim hayam kulchem l'fnei Hashem Elokechem. You, all of you, are standing together before God. V'du lachem, and you should know, Kigam hamesim, also the dead people, V'gam doros hasidot, also those generations to come. Sears lavo, rucham v'nishmosam, the body and soul, Netivot po, we're also standing here at Mount Sinai. Not just the people who are physically alive, but those who were dead, the neshamos of those who were dead, the neshamos of those who were to come in the future. Hadkan. Divrei HaMidrash, halalu, ve'irim esu inyam or chadash. The words of this Midrash explain to us clearly the aspect of what this new light is. Hina Yodua, because we know Kabbalah Satorah, at the time of receiving the Torah, Kol Shishim Ribo Shorshei Nishmos Yisrael, all 600,000 roots of the neshama of the souls of all Jews, Shekulam Omdu B'Mamad Har Sinai, all of them were standing at Mount Sinai. You and I were there. You and I were there. Our neshamas were there. And this is what we find with the commandment of with the remembering of standing at Mount Sinai. Shagam Ken Kosovo, it's also written, Rak Hishomer Lecha, be careful, Yishmor Nafshecha, and watch yourself, Ma'od, very much, Pentishkach, lest you forget, as Hadvorim, the things Ashero Einecha, that your eyes saw, not that your ancestors saw. God is telling us, don't forget the things that you saw, that each one of us saw at Mount Sinai. Matsinu, I just said that. Yom Asher Amadol V'Hashem L'Kacha B'Chorev, the day that you stood in Chorev at Sinai. Dainu Torah Kadosh Omeret L'Chol Yehudi. The Torah is telling every Jew, B'Chol Adoros, in every generation, Asher Ro Einecha Mamash, what your eyes specifically saw. Not the eyes of your ancestors, but what your eyes saw. Mishum Sheba Emes, because in truth, Mamad Har Sinai, standing at Har Sinai, was called the Neshamos Yisrael, all of the souls of the children of Israel, not only existing at that time, but Mikol Hadoros Haboim, from all generations to come. Koloshna Zohar Kodesh, Gavna do Dechsiv ki es asher yeshnu po, v'ashrei nenu po. As the Zohar says, those that are here, those that are not yet here. Ha'ukma de kula b'nei nashid is amina la'amhavi ba'alma kulo ishtachu b'had. He says, everybody was there at Har Sinai. Umechadesh midrash, and the midrash teaches us the pasuk atem netzavim, you are standing. Shelo rak b'kabbalas Torah, not only at receiving the Torah, elagam b'kriyas yamsu v'yas haaretz, also at the splitting of the sea and the entering into Eretz Yisrael. These are all things that are connected to the klal, the entity called Klal Yisrael, the entirety of the peoplehood of Israel. All 600,000 of the shamas, the roots neshamas of everybody were standing there. Also those who were dead already. Also those who would come in the future. Their spirit, their neshama was there. This is what it means, and so on. You are standing together, all of you, today. Kulchem, meaning all of you, Hayinu Klolos Nishmos Yisrael. This is the entirety of all the souls of the children of Israel. Kulchem Hayisim Ba'osim Amadas Nishgavim Lefnei Hashem Elokechem. All of you were standing at that time of the revelation of all these great revelations before God, your God. By Yesod Ha'amur, Nilmad, for this foundation we can learn, Nilmad, we can learn, Ladas, to know, Kikain Hadover Gam B'nogei L'tzias Mitzrayim, that it's also has to do with the same thing, the same concept of being there relating to the Exodus from Egypt. Sheklalos Neshamos Yisrael, all the souls of all the peoplehood of Israel. Hayukulam B'yetzias Mitzrayim, we're all at the Exodus from Egypt. V'chala Sipurim, and all of the stories, Shenichtavu, the Torah Kodesh, that the Torah writes, She Nitzchit, that are eternal, Shaichem L'chol Adoros Mamash, they have a connection to all the generations, specifically. Lola Oso Ador Bavad, not only to the generation of those who were in Egypt. Called Masha Kosev, everything that is written in Merumas and hinted at the Torah, and the Torah, Menyona Yetzias Mitzrayim, relating to Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt, Shaykh V'nogei L'chol Ish Yehudi B'Hava, are connected to and are appropriate and are part of every Jew right now. After the souls of all these Jews, after all these times, all these souls of the Jews were at the Exodus from Egypt and at the crossing of the sea. Rosh was called Osos from Osim, and we saw all the wonders and miracles that God did for the children of Israel. Shem Shalisi b'Kabbalas Torah will be as hard, just like it was with receiving the Torah. We all were there when this was happening, and we all went into Eretz Yisrael when at that time. We all went in together. Our neshamas went. And this is from this power, the command comes in the Torah, Beloshan Nochach, in a language of the present. Leman Tizkor Yom Tzeis Chameres Mitzrayim. You will remember the day that you're coming out of Egypt, Kol Yimei Chayecha, all the days of your life. Upen Tishkach es advorim asher ro einecha. You should not forget the things that your eyes saw. Shekol zeh, all of this nitzchi, it's all eternal. The Shayach Yehudi, and it's connected to every Jew. Basher Shoresh, who is the root. I'll call Shishim Ribo Nishmos Yisrael, the root souls of all the 600,000 souls of Bnei Yisrael. Ayusham Barucham Nishmosam. All of these root souls, there's every one of us, were there in our Ruach and Nefesh. Bapizeh, and because of this, Yuvan, we can understand. Masha Omru Zal, what our sages say, B'chol Dor V'Dor, Chayav Harav Atzmo Kilu Hu Yotzim Mitzrayim. Every generation, a person must see himself, herself, as if they came out of Mitzrayim. Ki Be'etzim Achin Hashem B'Poel, because Hashem, in actuality, made it that Kol Yishudi Mitzvahs Mitzrayim. Every Jew was at Yitzias Mitzrayim. Baruch Nishmasa, with your ruach, your spirit, and your soul. Who, and at this time, Chayav la'oreres haregesh, we have to awaken the excitement. Shagam haguf yargish, that the body itself, not just our spirit and our neshama, but the body itself will feel ilu hu yotzim Mitzrayim, that it went out of Egypt. Yesod hachiyuv, and the foundation, the basis of this obligation, these are the foundation and the sources of belief in God. Yehudi mechayev lahamin, a Jew must believe. Shehu ba'atzmo haya l'ruach v'shmosu b'tzis Mitzrayim, that he himself, with his soul, with his spirit, was present in Yetzias Mitzrayim. With Kabbalas Torah, and with the receiving of the Torah. Therefore, Olav wrote, a person must see themselves, Ki'ilu hu yatzim Mitzrayim, as if he left Mitzrayim, left Egypt. Whenever I call Elu Apsukim B'Lashon Yachid, notice that all of these sentences about leaving Mitzrayim are said in the singular. Not that they're speaking to the whole Klal Yisrael, but to each one of us individually. Ki Eved Hayisa, you, individually, singularly, you were a servant, Yotziach, and you came out, Lahoros, to teach. Just like the exodus from Egypt was done by the entity of Klal Yisrael, the whole people of Israel, Kach Yesh the Protos, also specifically L'chol Yachid, L'chinas Yitzias Mitzrayim. Every individual personally was the aspect of Yitzias Mitzrayim, leaving Egypt. And we have a hint at this by the blessings that Bilam gave when he wanted to curse the Jewish people. He instead gave them blessings. Shukosef, it says, Elokim Omar Kel Motziim in Mitzrayim. He says, God said, I am the God who brings you out of Egypt. Lashon Rabbi, Motziim, Yud Mem on the end makes it Rabbim, plural. Says it plurally for all Klal Yisrael. Lahala later, a few psukim later, Uamar, he says, Kel Motzio in Mitzrayim, not Motziim, but Motzio. God is bringing you out of Egypt. All right, you see the difference there. One is said to the Rabbim, to the many, the other is Motzia, to the individual. Lashon Yachid, individually. singular. Mishum sheyesh b'chinas Yetzias Mitzrayim a miklalas Yisrael, because Yetzias Mitzrayim had an effect on the peoplehood of Israel, all Israel together. But in addition, v'hein b'pratos kol yachid, every individual was taken out of Egypt. Ein zeh ma'ora shekara b'ava. This is not a happening that happened in the past. Davar hova, something that's happening now. V'nitzchi, and is eternal. Yakadosh Baruch Hu nitzchi, God is eternal. V'chol masav nitzchim hema, and all his deeds, all God's deeds are also eternal. Ubezeh biyarnu divrei Haggadah. Now we can understand the words in the Haggadah. Yotzienu Hashem Mitzrayim, that God took us out of Egypt. Lo ayidei malach, not through an angel. Lo ayidei saraf, not through a fiery angel. Lo ayidei shliach, not through another messenger. Ella, but only HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvod v'atzmo, God Himself, in His full glory, Himself took us out. So ma'ame aliyaso miyuchedet yesh b'zeh. So what is the uniqueness of this? HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvod v'atzmo v'tzionom Mitzrayim, that God Himself took us out in His glory from Mitzrayim. Umami mer yahaloch elav haisha agula ayidei malach. Oh, sorry, what difference would it have made to us? We wanted to get out of Mitzrayim. What difference would it have made if it was done by an angel or by a fiery serpent, a fiery angel? The reason is that whatever Hashem does is eternal. But the things that an angel does or a fiery angel does, Einu kol echad lashato b'vad, is not eternal, but is only for that time. Ilu haisi Yetzias Mitzrayim hayadim, and if the exodus from Egypt had occurred through an angel, through a messenger, then the redemption of Egypt would have been fitting only for that generation alone. We wouldn't be talking about this. We wouldn't say that everybody has to see themselves as coming out of Egypt. Okay, therefore, God Himself took us out with His glory out of Egypt, so that the exodus from Egypt will be an eternal thing, that recurs and renews itself in every generation. Including those who are dead and those who are destined to come in the future. Just like God is eternal, umasav nitzchim, so too are His deeds eternal. The Maharal writes in this sefer, Inyan hamaliot b'kach, how we got such a high level with this, HaKadosh Baruch Hu hotziosanu b'chvod v'atzmo, that God Himself took us out with His honor and with Himself. HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo sam einu el osodor. He didn't look. God did not look only on that generation. Some einu l'klal Yisrael, but He looked His eyes looked at Klal Yisrael, the entity of the peoplehood of Israel. Rishonim, Bachronim, Osim Hotzi, those before, those who come later, all of those He took out. This can only happen when you're talking about God doing it Himself. Because He could do everything. If the Exodus had come about through an angel, the Exodus would only have been for our forefathers, not for us. Since God is blessed, He brings together all the generations. Atmidim baklalim. He works with all things that are constant and all the generalities. Lo rak el advorim asher heim lefi shah. Not only those things that are for this time, Shabbat, for this time alone, but kavana and the intent. Generally, as it appears to be, Shakadosh Baruch Hu Nitzchi, that God is eternal. And also through this, Gam Nitzias Mitzrayim, the exodus from Egypt, Hayad Devar Nitzchi, is an eternal thing b'chol dor v'shah, in every generation and every time. That's what it means, that you have to remember the exodus from Egypt all the days of your life. Well, the Rabbos Halailos, and we know that the interpretation that's given, it's recited in the Haggadah. Why does it say call? It should just say, you should chayv to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim all of your life. So it says call, Yimei all the days of your life. The word call is the Rabbos Halailos, to include the night, the Fish and Yonah Nitzchi, because this exodus from Egypt, remembrance of it, is eternal. Every day, a Jew has the aspect of being getting an exodus from Egypt. We certainly have it right now on a personal level, on a national level. We feel like we're in that time when we're struggling to get out of the Mitzrayim, the Egypts of our life, the narrow corridors of our life, the troubles of our life. This is what it says with regarding to the crossing of the sea. It says in the Midrash, everybody was standing, all generations were standing at the time of Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea. Israel, as at that point God revealed to all of Israel. Domer, as it said, Zekeli Vanveo, this is my God, and I will beautify him, I will honor him. Omer Chazal, our sages say, Rasa Shivchos al Hayam, the lowest maidservant, saw on the sea as we're about to cross the sea, Mashlo Roya Cheskel Ravi, greater things, greater events than Yecheskel the prophet saw. She saw the splitting of the heavens and all the amazing things that were happening as the sea was being split. Then so we see the Chol Yisrael im begufam im berucham, all Bnei Israel, all the children of Israel, whether in their body or in their spirit or their neshama, their soul, Oz, they saw then Kizek Heli, that this is our God. Shakadosh Baruch Hu Nimtza Imahem, that God is found amongst us. This revelation, Gam Kein Inyan Nitzchi, is something that is eternal. Amischadesh, that renews itself. Mitava b'kol zmanim, and is present at all times. The high time, from this reason, Shekol Masha Kodesh Baruch Hu B'chvodu Atzmo Osa Hu Nitzchi, because everything that Hashem does is eternal. V'zeh Yisod HaNitzchis Shel Kabbalas Torah. And this is also the foundational source of the eternality of receiving the Torah. Shedibra Hashem B'Aseret Tedibros, the words of God in the Aseret Tedibros, who Nitzchi Liolam, are eternal forever. K'mo Shenemar, as it says, Olam Hashem Devorcha Nitzav Hashemayim. The words of God are forever standing in the heavens. V'dibar Elokeinu Yakum Olam, and it says the words of God stand forever. Not only that the words of God stand forever, Elokol Mamad Har Sinai, all the standing at Mount Sinai, Vafilu HaKolos, and even the thunders, Abrakim, the lightning, Nitzchim, are eternal. V'kaimim la'olam, and exists forever. And it's passed down. We've heard about Shem Tov and about the Baal Shem Tov, HaKodesh, the Holy Baal Shem Tov, Shebachol Pam Shehishmiya, the Talmid, of every time that he gave over to his students as Sodos, the secrets, Torah Kadosh of the Holy Torah, Rozin, Elaine, and the higher secrets, Hayu Zochim, those people who were listening to the Baal Shem Tov give this over, they merited the Shmoa to hear Kamas Hakolos, also the thunders, Abrakim, the lightning, Shekidmu Kabbalah Torah, that came before the receipt of the Torah, the Mamad Har Sinai, at the time of Har Sinai. Ze'enyan, this is the aspect of Zechiras, Mamad Har Sinai, of remembering, standing at Har Sinai. Shetzorech Ishihudi Lizkor B'chol Yom B'chayav. A Jew has to remember every day of his or her life as Yom Asher Madta Lifnei Hashem Elokech B'chorei, the day that you stood before God in Sinai. Games Hamamad Shalatzmo, also the personal standing. Mishum She'af Mamad Kabbalah Satorah Hu Nitzchi V'Chadish B'chol Yom B'Yom, because the standing for the receipt of the Torah is eternal and it renews itself every single day. Valpi Homer, as it says, Novim Pesher, Shne Mikros Shenemru V'Yitzis Mitzrayim. We can explain the explanation of the two words that are said with regard to leaving Egypt. V'hi Be'etzim Hayom Hazeh, it was at the middle of this day, Yatsu called Tzivakot Hashem Eretz Mitzrayim. All of the legions of God left Egypt. Later it says, "Vahi betzim hayom hazeh hotzi Hashem es bnei Yisrael." In the middle of this day, God is bringing out the children of Israel, Meretz Mitzrayim, al tzivotam, on their according to their legions, meaning the various Shvatim, the tribes of Bnei Israel. L'chura Temua, and it's difficult to understand. Felos Hapsukim, the language, the doubling of the language in these two sentences that I just read. The two sentences of Yatsu and Hotzi. So how do we explain that? V'gam shinui halash, and also the changing of the language. First of all, it's repeated, then the language is changed from Yatsu to Hotzi. Shebetchila nemar called Tzivok Hashem. At first it says all of the legions of Hashem. Achar kach nemar, then it says Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, al tzivotam, by their legions. Achein yesh lomer dakavona, and the intent of this is al pi isish of Mitzrayim naflu nitzotzos hakadosha. Many holy sparks of people had fallen. They were buried in the ground. Sparks of people that maybe weren't born yet, people that didn't live, people that nitzotzos, the people that God didn't feel at the time were not worthy to bring into the world, but yet their spark of life was there. So these holy nitzotzos, they had fallen. These taku sham, they were remaining there. We see Mitzrayim, and at the Exodus from Egypt, the galo nitzotzos hakadoshas, v'shavim v'koram. Also, these holy sparks were redeemed and returned to their proper place. And that's why the first sentence says, Yatsu called Tzivokot Hashem, remember Mitzrayim, that they was taken out all of the legions of God from Egypt, And this refers to Elu Nitzotzos Hakadoshim, the holy sparks. V'od hapasuk Sheni, in the second sentence, V'daber b'nei Yisrael, that it's talking about the children of Israel. Shehotzia Hashem es b'nei Yisrael, that God is bringing now is bringing b'nei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim al Sivotam, bringing them now from Egypt according to their hosts. Perish al Sivotam. What does that mean? Al kol hadoros, on all the generations shall Klal Yisrael, of the entity called the peoplehood of Israel. Amesim v'atidim lavo, the dead and those that are still destined to come later, to be born later. Shekulam yatzum Mitzrayim, they were all came out of Egypt. V'hinei, kishem shinyan agula shaykh l'kol hadoros, just like the aspect of redemption applies to every generation. We're always looking to be redeemed from the difficulties that we're in. Just as that redemption applies, Kein gam bechinas hagolus, so too we have the aspect of exile. Bagzera mavrit bein habas. I'm sorry. Bagzera mibrit ben habasorim. The decree of going into exile was already told to Avraham Avinu at the covenant that Hashem made with him, Bris ben Vasarim. Ki ger yeb zaracha, that you told Avraham, your children will be a stranger and will live in a land that is not theirs and be slaves. That applies to every single person, every single Jew. She'eino omer, doesn't say ki gerim yiu zaracha, doesn't say your children will be strangers, ela b'lashon yachid, but in a singular, ki ger yia zaracha, your children is a stranger. Batam, the reason, mipnei shezeh yesod hayadus, this is the foundation of Judaism. And Klal Yisrael, all of the entity of Klal Yisrael, called Prat Yisrael, Mitchila Alehem, Lavor Bechinas Eder, Shel Gerut Fagalus. All of Bnei Yisrael as a whole, before they became Bnei Yisrael, the first began an individual who felt the loss and the lack of lack of emunah, lack of being free, and that was the exile that he had. Adasha called smicha chadasha. And what is this likened to? Every new planting. Lo titakein does not work. Ela im kodem lo ha'eder, unless before you plant, you have a loss, you have a disintegration. Meaning that the seeds that you're planting are completely completely spoiled. Until there's nothing remaining of these seeds, Ella, just this spark of life. We've talked about that concept before. The kusta d'chiyusa, the spark of life, not only within any plant that you plant, but within every one of us. We have that spark of life, that spark of being a Jew. That spark can be reignited at any time because the spark is always there. Kusta d'chiyusa, umizeh, and from this little spark of life, kusta d'chiyusa, tatchil atzmicha chadasha, the new birth, the new growth begins. Kamokain, similarly called Ish Yisrael, every Jew individually, tzorech lios techila etzlo bechinas eder, has to feel this loss at first. Barmozal and our sages say, Kol she'enu behester ponim, enu mehem. Every Jew who doesn't really feel that at some time it looks like God is hiding from him, he's not really part of them. Because we all sometimes feel God is hiding. God tells us himself, there will be times I'm going to hide from you. And God hides from us, apparently hides from us, so that we will show our emunah that even though we can't see him behind the curtain, so to speak, God is watching and taking care of everything. So we say in the prayers every day, God covers the heavens with clouds, and then it says to that is followed by the rain. As we looks at clouds, we see it doesn't look good, then we see the goodness, the beauty, the blessing of the rain. Without losing, going lost down to almost nothingness, you can't have this new growth. Bagula nivneit mitoch hagalus, and the redemption comes from the exile, is built from the exile. Badash shapirshu tzadikim, memrakosov. This is how the righteous people explain the pasuk, as we say in the Tillim, in the Shir Amalos. B'shuva Hashem es shivas Shem, when God returns the captives of Zion, Hainu kacholmim, we will be like dreamers. Hey, Rish, what does that mean? Ki Yosef Bala Melchamos, Yosef HaTzadik was a dreamer. He dreamt all these big dreams. Vosha Yosef Avru Yisorim Ko Rabim. And Yosef, because he was such a dreamer, nonetheless, all these difficulties fell upon him. There's many, many difficulties. And after that, Kishiyotza Limloch, when he began to rule, in essence, over Egypt, Rob Alil, he saw Shekal Yisurim Shesovel, that all the difficulties, all the pains, the being in jail, all the things he suffered, really brought him to this level of greatness. Without this, he wouldn't have come to the aspect of ruling over Egypt. Similarly, when Hashem returns the captives of Zion, Yuri Israel, B'nai Israel will see, Shekal Yisurim She'avru al Haklau, that all of the difficulties that we are faced with as a country, as a nation, as a Klal Yisrael, all these difficulties, Balaprat, and not only the difficulties of the Klal, but the difficulties we individually feel. The Meshech Kol Hagalo, during all this exile, Harucha, this long exile, Hakol Hayelatova, we will then see that all of this was for good. She calls that Havi. All of this brings us Legilui Hagadol Shel Hagula Hatida, to reveal the greatness of the future redemption, the coming redemption that is coming, Bezrat Hashem, momentarily. Mitocha Eder Gufo, and from this feeling of loss, we have a feeling of loss. We've lost the Beis Hamikdash. We've lost all the things that Beis Hamikdash represented. So through this feeling of loss, Yotze Hatzmicha Chadasha, the new growth begins. New growth comes out. Just like with the general exile, similarly as the exile of each individual. Each of us have our own problems which feel like we're exiled from God. Shematoch Hagalus, through this exile, or Eder Ba, the loss that we feel comes to raise us up, Acher Kach Hagula, and after that we have the redemption. So when we sit at the Seder and we start saying Avodim Hayinu b'Mitzrayim, we were slaves in Mitzrayim. If Hashem had not taken us out of there, Anu v'nenu v'nenu, etc., etc., us, our children said, we'll be still slaves in Mitzrayim. Put it in the present. Feel your present. Not only Klal Yisrael, but feel your own personal. How? By feeling the loss, you will be able to bring in the Galut. Feeling that this is something Hashem does for us, not historically, but right now, God is bringing us out of this Mitzrayim, out of the narrow places that we are stuck, out of the Mitzrayim, the Egypts of all the countries that want to defeat us and oppress us. And so that's something to make you have you think about as we're going into Pesach. I will turn off the sound now and ask for any questions after that.